In specialty healthcare, growth is not optional, but scaling with operational excellence, that's the hard part. I'm Joe Zboch. This is Scaling Specialty Growth.
Thank you for listening. Today is a little bit different. Today we're doing a solo episode, so if you expect me to introduce a guest, I apologize. It's just me. It's Joe, Director of Marketing at Hatch and host of Scaling Specialty Growth. We've had some really good conversations over the past several weeks. I think 5 different episodes with COOs and operations leader at scaling practices. And I wanted to take a moment to just pause and reflect a little bit on some of the lessons that they taught me about what it takes to be an operations leader. Clearly, I am not the operations leader at a practice. And so when I say that I've learned a lot, it's true. And secondarily, there's a lot of things that I expected going in that just either weren't the case, weren't quite true, or weren't what I thought. So I'm going to talk about the top 3 takeaways that hopefully you find insightful, or at least usable in a way that is helpful. So takeaway 1, this is probably my number 1 thing that surprised me. I expected conversations with operations leaders to be really focused on the systems, right? Very, if not formulaic, then very formula driven. And while there certainly was a lot of formulas and patterns that were consistent across the guests, I really thought operators would be almost more mechanical in a sense. I know that's super rude to say it like that, but that was a little bit of what I thought going into it. But what I learned was it's about people. It's about people and communication. And that, in a way, really is the operating system, not some secret sauce mechanism, framework, or kind of like put in your inputs, the function runs, and these are the outputs, and we're adjusting knobs and paying attention. That's not the case at all. I think Amy C. Hafer, COO at OSMS, said it plainly. She said, my job and my team's job from an operational standpoint is to make sure that we have the right people doing the right things. And those things need to be solid processes. And we need to make sure that we're looking for the appropriate technology solution. So people, process, and technology. That's not a new framework, but it's not a throwaway like you hear it when you read a LinkedIn post. It really is the order of operations, because when you start with people first, process second, technology third, that's what it takes to be great from an operator standpoint. Kelly Anderson, that was a great episode. They do something unique when it comes to really listening to the people, as they have a quarterly kind of forum where they hear feedback from staff and they implement. And so recently they had staff saying, hey, we're not really active on social. I think it would make a big difference to people and patients in our community to learn a little bit more about DMOS, a little bit more about our physicians. And so because she had kind of that ritual in place that was centered around this idea of people and communication, there's things from that can bubble up from the roots of the practice all the way to the tippy top. I thought that was great. Matthew Slater at UC San Diego Health, he shadowed every single physician. He has family members become patients so they can really understand and the patient experience and go through the process himself. He warns that you can become numb if you don't stay rooted in what people are actually experiencing. And of course, Jen Weena at Gastro Health. Gastro Health being a PE-backed roll-up that was really one of the first in this space. You hear a lot about what that takes, and of course, it's a massive amount of coordination to do these integrated efforts. But they don't start and kind of like slap down a big old book. It's like, hey, here's what's to happen. Welcome to the new world. No, they start with listening. They start again with people and communication. So the common thread across all of this is, if you want to be a great operator, by definition, you have to be a great communicator. And if you want to be a great communicator, you have to be empathetic and focused on the people. Because ultimately, a company, a practice, an organization, it's just people working together trying to do a thing that matters. And I think that was really exemplified by the people that I've interviewed so far across Scaling Specialty Growth. Takeaway 2, start small every time, no exceptions. Ross Rigdon, he said it really well. He had a great metaphor in terms of how he approaches data and technology. They're really focused at Raleigh Orthopedic on integrating AI into a lot of what they do and really having rich data at their fingertips. So you don't just hand somebody a guitar and say, okay, play, because you've heard the song. No, you start with a few chords, you start with some gentle drumming, and you build from there. I think this theme was consistent throughout. It is really important to follow a process that is structured once you have the people on board. And you can only change so much at a time. You can't optimize before you stabilize. This is Amy's sequencing rule. Stabilize first, then optimize, never in reverse. And I think when Kelly at DMOS was really investigating what they could do to take workers' comp to the next level, she went through a very kind of structured process herself, which started with gathering data, listening to peers, understanding where the gaps were. I've been in digital health technology for 12 years, more than that. And one of the things that I've learned when communicating with operators and buyers on the other side of the fence is we don't have solutions looking for problems, right? That's the thing here over and over again. It's this newfangled technology. It's a solution looking for a problem. No, the best operators are starting with a current state, honest assessment about where things stand and what they can do to take a meaningful next step. And they're always starting small. The pattern is if you go too fast and too big off the rip, you're going to end up having a bad time. And I think Dr. Matthew Slater summed it up when he's like, hey, you have to be comfortable making decisions with the data that you have, because you're not going to ever have all of the data. And something Chris Poole, our CEO, says, which I've taken to heart, is it's not really about being right with your plan. It's not about being perfect. It's about thinking it through in such a way that you have KPIs and you have milestones set up along the way so that it starts to go off track, right? You can right the ship, right? You actually have the processes in place to notice when things are going a little bit wayward. And that goes back to the communication piece, right? Which is so important, is because things are going to go a little bit wayward. You're going to have tough conversations, not just with executives, but with the people on the team. And one of the things that I think Amy said, well, I guess I'm paraphrasing, was more of a mode of operating. She treats it like a game, right? Change is inevitable. Growth is uncomfortable. To grow, you have to change. And what she's implemented with her teams, they treat it like a game that they're all playing together. And so that perspective shift gets everybody on board. And so tough becomes fun, right? Bumps along the way becomes opportunity to figure out where it went wrong and gamify. Hey, what's next? What is this puzzle that we can figure out? And we're going to do it together. Number 3 takeaway, it's what operations leaders actually think about AI. AI is obviously a huge topic. There's a lot of people talking about it, and it feels like, at least for me, when I go on LinkedIn, that's all I see is AI this, AI that. Somebody burned $500 million in tokens. In healthcare, it's this, that, and the other thing. There's so many startups. I don't know what to pay attention to. It really goes back to where we were before. Start small. It's about people. It's about communication. And so really, the idea is, well, it came up organically in the conversations. And one of the things Ross said is, he says, I don't necessarily want to reduce staff, but I want to be able to continue to grow with the staff that I have. That seems to be the underpinning or the silver thread and what can be a little bit of the doom and gloom as relates to AI and this world that we now all live in. Is in healthcare, which is really ripe for the sort of evaporation of meaningless or lower value tasks that lead to burnout. That's a real opportunity. But it's not about, hey, I'm going to get rid of all these people. It's like, no, it's about, hey, how can I invest into these people, right? When you listen to Dr. Matthew Slater's episode, you're going to hear that by paying attention to people and looking at process and finding the gaps, that led to a huge boost in his ability to retain. And a lot of these operations leaders, particularly at practice, when you're looking at coordinator roles or contact center roles or access center roles, that is a job that has quite a bit of turnover. And so a lot of these operations leaders have cracked the code in terms of, yeah, you actually can retain these people when you have training in place, when you have a people forward and empathetic approach, when they understand what the goals are, what the KPIs are, and when you've turned into some of this tough change, you've turned it into a game. The takeaway here is, as it relates to AI, is it doesn't necessarily get its own playbook. Yes, it's a brand new category of thing that we're still really figuring it out, but the same rules apply. It's about understanding the problem. It is about not just looking for solutions to problems that you don't have. You have to understand where you are. You have to make a small bet without all the information, and you have to implement it. You have to communicate clearly about what the goals are when they go off track, inevitably, right? Have that communication line open. You have to get the people on board and start small before you scale. And so when I think about the future of scaling specialty growth, I know now that when we're talking to these operations leader, at the root of everything is the people. and that master operators are master communicators, and that they are looking to make incremental changes that aren't sweeping, so that the team doesn't freak out, that there's not a way to understand what the impact of these changes are over time. And they're making bets across a wide range of portfolio to ultimately maintain operational excellence while building the systems required to support growth in really competitive markets. So please, I encourage you to listen to these episodes. There's great nuggets there, far better than what I've been able to articulate in this little recap episode. But I do want to say thank you to Amy, to Kelly, to Ross, to Matthew, and to Jen. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you taught me, and I appreciate your wisdom. And I'm looking forward to getting even more of it from your peers. That's a recap episode of Scaling Specialty Growth. Thanks.
Hey, it's Joe. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, share with a peer. And if you're looking to scale referral operations to drive growth and efficiency, visit hatchcare.com.